From the NFL to podcasting and now to elite college football, Matt Patricia becomes the next defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Big hire, both in terms of experience, in terms of quote-unquote splash hire, a very well-known guy in the NFL, coaching with Bill Belichick in New England, coaching for the head coach for the Detroit Lions, and so much more. Brad, let's jump right into this. This is a very experienced, seasoned veteran coach, and now he's taken his shot at college football. We've seen that a lot of these guys going back and forth between college and NFL, especially now that college is becoming more like NFL with NIL. People are dabbling in both. College going to NFL, NFL going to college, wherever you can get the experience. I think of Bill O'Brien as well, a guy from New England as well, and now Bill Belichick. So, look, they're all three in the college football world now, which if you had told me 12 years ago that was going to be the case, I think everyone would have laughed.
Absolutely.
Now here we stand, Matt Patricia, new defensive coordinator for Ohio State. Give me your initial thoughts on this hire. Jim Knowles out the door, heads to Penn State. We talked about him earlier. We'll link that video above. Give us your first impressions on this guy.
Well, man, I have a million thoughts on this. Yeah, first of all, Ohio State fans, your defense is still going to be top 10, and that is just due to the ridiculous amount of talent. Look, Ryan Day, love him or hate him, can't stand him, want to fire him tomorrow, or now you're on the bandwagon because you got a national championship. The guy runs, I would say, an NFL type program, and I mean that's not always the case in college football, but he's got that NFL vibe, and you see that from his schemes to how he runs the program to his hire. So it's an interesting hire. But like I said, Ohio State's not going anywhere. That starts and ends with Caleb Downs, who is a top 3 player in college football. In my mind, they may have the top 2 players in college football with him and then Jeremiah Smith on the other side. But not going to dive into that right now. But Nate, this is obviously a guy that made his name with Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Didn't have a great tenure with the Lions. The most wins he got was 6 in his initial year. So didn't have a great head coach. But Nate, something that stands out to me looking at his coaching career, has not coached in college football since 2003 when he was a grad assistant with Syracuse. So this guy obviously was with the Patriots for, about 12 seasons with the Lions. And, went back to the Patriots and was with the Eagles. And then in 2024 took a year off from football. So this is intriguing. Look, this guy has forgotten more about football than I know about football. I mean, we know that Matt Patricia knows his stuff. I will say, though, once again, Ohio State's going to be fine, but, it's different, when you're transitioning from the NFL to college. You've got less time with the players as far as being, in the film room and on the practice field. It's different. You're having conversations with, teenagers and young adults. It's interesting. Like I said, I have no doubt they're going to be really good, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him. And luckily, he's got an entire spring, to figure out those personalities, to figure out who fits where. But it's intriguing. I hate to keep repeating myself. They're going to be good, but is it another national championship for them? I truly don't. I truly don't know because, like I said, the transition is so interesting. It's so unique.
Yeah, you mentioned some really great points, Brad, and a couple of them that I want to hit on real quick. Number one, you talk about can they go on another national title run? They're Ohio State. I think they can.
Yeah.
Is it going to be easy? No, it's not. And that leads me into my second question. And I think this is one of the most underlying questions. Everyone wants to talk about, how will Matt Patricia adapt to college football? How will he adapt to this Ohio State team? How are him and Ryan Day going to get along?
And that's
because Ryan Day is a tough guy. I mean, he is a tough guy.
Yeah. I mean, no, you make a great point. Look, I mean, there was some rumors, and we don't know this. There were some rumors that one of the reasons Jim Knowles left was because him and Ryan Day may have not gotten along. And I will tell you, from what I've seen with Matt Patricia, I mean, he's an alpha. I mean, he really is. And, I'm sure him and Bill Belichick butted heads at times. So that's because that's going to be intriguing, Nate, because I'm going to tell you, if Ryan Day goes up and tries to take over that room, Matt Patricia's, in my opinion, from what I've seen from him, he's not going to back down. So I think they will get along, but it wouldn't surprise me if we had a little bit of, are you going to have a little bit of Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin blow up on the sideline? It could happen. It could happen.
I mean, one thing's for certain. There's a huge opportunity for an NIL deal, and that's just for men's, because both of these guys are going to have outstanding beards with the perfect touch of just for men. But in all seriousness, this team is set up to win.
Yes.
Matt Patricia finds himself in arguably one of the best situations a coordinator can find themselves in. He comes into Columbus and Ryan Day says, here you go. Here's the keys to the defense. I think there's going to be some trust there. I think there is going to be some friction, though. Yeah. I think there is. And I think it's really going to come up if something happens on a big play down the stretch of a game.
I mean, I think that's a fair point. I mean, look, these guys are competitive. They want to win, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see a sideline blow up between these two. At the end of the day, they both want to win, and they're gonna have that blow up, and immediately be fine, ready to go back to work. Something, Nate, that I'm intrigued by, and I'm going to go ahead and give my take. I think Matt Patricia's in Columbus for 1 year.
Wow.
I think they have success. Look, we're not going to get into in-season prediction. We're not going to get into preseason predictions. We got plenty of time for that. It's March. Yeah. I think Ohio State goes deep again, and I think Matt Patricia's back to the NFL in a DC spot. That's my prediction. I think it's good for, like I said, we are seeing more and more position coaches in college go to the NFL because of the schedule. We're seeing some of these guys in the NFL say, hey, you know what? I can go get a reset in college, kind of rebuild my brand, rebuild my reputation, my name for being a good coach, and I can, go back to the NFL. That's my prediction. I may be totally off, and hey, I will eat crow later this year if Matt Patricia is here, next spring practice. But sure. I think he's one and done in Columbus. I think he's going to be in the NFL after this year.
No, I think that's a very valid point. I think you could say the same about Bill O'Brien. I think you could say the same about Bill Belichick. Now, Bill O'Brien stayed in the college a little bit longer. Obviously, he's got the reins being the head coach for Boston College. Right. We won't get into Boston College right now, but in a way, I honestly think that sometimes the egos get to these guys' head and they say, oh, Bill thinks he can coach college? All right, I'll go coach college too.
I will say, I don't think we're going to see an Ohio State North Carolina game, but man, would that be entertaining? It'd be entertaining if we did.
That'd be great. It'd be great. All these matchups, these non-conference and conference matchups, they're going to be outstanding this year. But when it comes to Matt Patricia, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball, obviously.
Yeah.
How does his system coming from the NFL fit into Ohio State in a world where we're seeing, like Kirby Smart talk about, these kids, they don't want to be coached as much. Now, granted, you have a guy like Caleb Downs, who I think is just a sponge when it comes to learning the game of football. He is an outlier. For the rest of this defense, how does Matt Patricia take on that role, knowing what he's up against with portal, NIL, and maybe lack of accountability?
Once again, I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him. I think he's a football genius. He's been around this game for a while, and he's done it at a high level. Honestly, you think about those unbelievable successful Patriots teams, and they had, the GOAT and Tom Brady, but those defenses were also really, really good. And this was the guy leading them. One of the things that stood out to me about those Patriots defenses, and I don't, this is not an NFL podcast, so I'm not going to dive too deep, but there was always a lot of flexibility. They always, adjusted their defense and put different personnel out to what the offense was doing. Now, something I'm intrigued by is, you're coming into where you could face, a team that goes 5 wide one week, and, then you got a team like Iowa that, they barely throw a pass over 5 yards the next week. No disrespect to Iowa, but, truthfully, let's
Iowa fans know.
But that's going to be interesting to me is, how does he deal with the different offenses? And look, we've seen the spread become more prevalent in the NFL, but that's going to be interesting to me. Real quick before I turn it back over to you, obviously he's got an alpha. He's got one of the best players in college football in Caleb Downs. you are replacing a guy like Jack Sawyer. That's two guys that I'm intrigued by, and they're both FCS. On Break the Huddle, we love FCS to FBS transfers. Two guys that Ohio State only took 6, and only took 6 transfer portal guys
far.
So far, yes, thank you. So far, only 2 on defense, and they were both FCS guys. The first one, Logan George from Idaho State. Guy didn't put up huge numbers, 5.5 sacks, 53 total tackles, but maybe he figures, hey, I can kind of take over that Jack Sawyer defensive end role. Excuse me. Another guy, and I'm really intrigued by this guy, Nate. This is an Ohio guy, Ty Howard from DeQueens, and if I'm mispronouncing that in the on here comments, please correct me. But comes from the DeQueens Dukes. He's intrigued me. They had him listed as a linebacker, but 6 foot, 200 pounds. This guy really jumped off he really passed the eye test to me. 53 total tackles last year, 4 sacks, and then 3 interceptions for 45 yards. I think you're going to see him play some kind of hybrid role. And what did I just speak of? Matt Patricia is flexible with his defense. Some guys play some versatile positions. This guy fits that. Ohio State's going to be a fun defense to watch this fall.
I completely agree with you. And I think when you bring in transfers, you always wonder, how are they going to adapt to the culture? Yeah. How are they going to fit into a system? Well, here's a guy coming in that knows how to get the most out of maybe some players that are under the radar, looking to step up and become elite. Right. Final question for you, Brad, and the listeners, for the Ohio State viewers. Does this defense take a step forward, or does it take a step back? Knowing what we saw last year with Jim Knowles, only allowing less than 250 yards per game on defense, just under 15 points per game on defense. Do we see the same type of defense? Do they take a step back and regress, or do they progress?
I'm going to say they take a step forward. Once again, I think Ohio State is just, you've got a plethora of 4 and 5 stars on the field. Matt Patricia is, a scheme guru. I think they're going to honestly be, probably just a touch better. And look, there's I would say a little bit of an unknown about how the Ohio State offense is going to be. And the only reason I say that is, some uncertainty at the quarterback position. So maybe very, very early in the season, this defense is going to have to carry them. And I think they're going to rise to the challenge. And Matt Patricia is going to do a great job. I'm going to say they're going to be a tad bit better. Jim Knowles did a great job, but I think they're going to be just a tad bit better.
I agree for the most part. I think, to your point, we saw early on in the season last year, Ohio State did not play up to par. As they progressed throughout the season, they got better and better. They became what I would call a March Madness team, right? Even though they were the favorite towards the end of the year in the playoffs, no one really expected them to be a playoff favorite in the first 4 to 5 games. We saw them struggle a little bit with Oregon. We saw them struggle a little bit. Then they started to get hot later on in the season. So I do think, at the very least, I think we see the same amount of physicality, same amount of discipline. I would be very disappointed and very shocked if we saw anything less.
Yeah.
If you're an Ohio State fan, let us know down in the comments what you think about this intriguing hire and Matt Patricia as he becomes your next defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Be sure to subscribe down below, like this video, and set that bell notification so you can stay up to date when we post our latest video. We'll see you next week. It's time to break the huddle.